retirementsolutions.com.
21st Century Radio is sponsored by Hieronymus and Company. This is Talk Radio 680 WCBM. It's time now for award-winning 21st Century Radio. Here's your host, Dr. Bob Hieronymus.
One world, one mind, one love. We will find on common ground. Peace will be found for all on earth.
You're listening to one of our dear friends, Oneida Elder Joanne Shenandoah, with harpist Bambi Niles. Welcome back to 21st Century Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Bob Hieronymus, and our executive producer and research assistants, Laura Cordner, and our engineer is Anita Brockington. I want to thank you, our listeners, and those who follow us on Facebook for all the happy birthday well wishes, gifts, and support of our work over the past 32 years of 21st Century Radio. Actually, I think it's 33 now. We're making great progress on the recreation of my 1969 Woodstock bus, which will be visiting Woodstock's 50th anniversary, and Janie Hendricks will be joining us with that. And we go up, and also Ziggy Marley should be joining us. Both of them wanted to travel in that particular bus, and that anniversary is in August 2019, and we're making good progress on our second book on the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, which will be out in a few months. And my mural, Historic Views of Baltimore, will be hung this October at the Mitchell Courthouse in downtown Baltimore. My 75th birthday was the most satisfying celebration, and I celebrate my birthday for a whole month, I've ever had in this present incarnation. Tonight should be a 4-hour show, if we could cover all the topics with our special guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And many of the topics we'll try to cover are sustainable lifeboats for those who realize that there are severe dangers, man-made dangers, and Mother Nature dangers in the future. Also, the science and promise of Fullerene, I hope I pronounced this correctly, water, the illusion of reality, space and elevators by 2050, teleportation, the mystery of Building 7's total collapse during 9/11. Our guest is Dr. Richard Allen Miller, who has joined us at least 11 times. Now, I know that's an awful lot for our particular guests here, because we only have a show every week. And over the past 30 years, he first joined us in 1989. And the last time was 5 years ago, 2013. Dr. Miller is the author of diverse papers and books on metaphysics, parapsychology, and alternative agriculture. And his recent books include Power Tools for the 21st Century and ESP Induction through Forms of Self-Hypnosis. And his most recent contributions to Nexus are The New Directions of Mind Control, ESP Induction through Self-Hypnosis, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but he'll correct me with it, the Cordyceps Sign. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm
Help
watching
me.
you, Bob. It's wonderful.
Well,
it's nice to be back with you.
Well, certainly. You're perhaps one of the most informed human beings.
Actually, in 1974, at Gnosticon 4, not 5, when your first book came out, and we were in St. Paul. I don't know if you remember that, with Llewellyn.
Well,
and Sandra Wojcicki.
Yes, I remember those good old days, because they were good old days. There were so many important things going on during that time. Well, I've been privileged to know you for, I don't know how long, since 74, but who knows?
More than 40 years. We've been in the same ruts. No. Very pleased to be back with you, actually. It's nice to be with you.
Well, our first question. For $30,000, if you get the answer to this question, you'll be sending you on a trip to Bermuda.
Door number 5.
Okay, door number 5. All right, okay. Climate and earth changes are upon us, and we're not ready. Our president is blind to our dangerous situation, and the Republicans could care less. But you have a sustainable lifeboat plan. Tell us about it.
So I'm, as you may or not remember, because at the time we met, I could not even talk to you about Seal Corporation. I was, Seal Corp was out of Amherst, and I was a Navy SEAL. And Carl and Sandra had no clue, but they were doing my ESP workshops back even then that were based on how I selected SEAL Team number 1. Remember, I was working out of anesthesiology. I was under Jerry Pollack at the University of Washington. And that's when you came out with that wonderful book on money, The Illusion of Money and How It's All Going to Hit a Brick Wall. Yeah, I remember that day. Yes, it's all happening. I was up on Vancouver Island 2 weekends ago doing workshops and setting up 2 sustainable lifeboats for congressmen up there. And these are lifeboats with oars. When the 2 earthquakes went off up in Alaska, 6.5 and a 6.4, no, 8.6 and an 8.7. That's right.
Whoa,
there it is.
Whoa.
Yeah, it happened about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. My bunker that I manage has several satellites, and one of them has infrared. And you could see 2 lava strikes in the northern territories up above BC. The Pacific plate is shifting. And so we're going to have an event. How bad, flip the coin. I have no clue. We have worst case scenarios, but I'm guessing with my physics and my experience and the fact that I'm grumpy, I think we're going to lose everything from I-5, Interstate 5, west. It's going to slide in, and Grants Pass is going to become the new waterfront. The East Coast uses Scallion and some of his maps. We use Chet Snow. They're similar. The New Madrid fault line is going to collapse. There are 21 Daiichi-like GE reactors on that fault line, and they're all leaking. That is best guess to go underwater. The United States is going to get cut in 2, and there's probably going to be a no man's land where you can't go because of the radiation. Hanford is already showing leakage up the Columbia River and down as far as San Francisco. It's not Fukushima. Fukushima is up more north, coming in on Alaska right now. We're in for it. Now, I don't know how bad it's going to get when you mix, the plastic that DuPont has contributed to the mess.
Oh, my, yes.
Yeah, well, you get the big picture. How your bottlenose dolphin working. It's happening, and it's in slow enough motion that most people get a drift, but they don't see the bigger picture. All the currents are gone. That means we're going to have a reboot. That is physics, and because of the saline levels in the ocean, which means we are going to have a day after tomorrow. It will most likely be like the one in the movies, 10 days, and then everything starts to, go back into semi-normal. But you're already seeing some of it right now. Mm-hmm. Weather and the way the hurricanes and tornadoes are hitting. I don't have a clue, but I have a network now throughout most of North America, including Canada, already for when a grid down situation occurs. Can you imagine being where you are in New York? Up north, you're in Baltimore, up in New York, let's say you're 16 flights up, there's been no water for 5 days, and you have to go to the bathroom. How's that going to work?
I don't know.
I do, man. It's going to be the dark ages. It's going to go crazy.
Yeah.
And people are going to panic, and so there will be blood and, the usual chaos that is semi-avoidable and exploitable, and that's how they'll play. How did they do it in Indiana Jones? Anything goes. Las Vegas showed that real easy. They had a gun running operation go bad, and so we'll add a few more helicopters and body counts so we can go here and there. And then when you ask what really happened, the correct response is yes.
Well, then let's talk a little bit about sustainable lifeboat. Why did you choose to move away from physics and enter into the field of alternative agriculture? Because obviously, this is very much needed with what's about ready to happen on our planet and especially in this country.
You know, that's a good question. And you met me when I was just switching over with Acres USA in the 80s. That was Chuck Walters.
Oh, Chuck. Oh, gosh.
See, I'm tickle.
Yeah.
I was one of his pallbearers. I have a 9-volume encyclopedia now on alternative agriculture. I am MacGyver from the military. That's what I do. I'm a lineage. I'm a legacy, a 5th generation Swiss Mason. My great-grandfather was Rudolf Steiner's lodge master.
Holy cow!
You know the
say that.
I wear.
Say that again. I nearly worship this guy, Rudolf Steiner. Tell us
well, that was my great-grandfather. He was a lodge master, and I'm Nelson line. I'm the Nelson line, and so I'm a legacy in Zurich, and I'm mentor for Waldorf. And I have a 12-year-old in Cornell right now doing his doctorate in chemistry.
Oh.
What would I mentor with him? Well, we write a comic book together. Kid got it. It's fun.
Well, tell me.
They built me now as the real Doctor Strange at comic conventions. So you've known my past. My latest title I'm writing, it's going to go to press next month, called The Magical and Ritual Use of Metaphor, Archetypal Gods in Daily Living.
When is that coming out?
Next month. I have two other books coming out next month, too. I have 10 audio books out now on metaphysics when I taught at Harvard. And what I've done is there are mostly huge files on these downloads because they're the old rare manuscripts I quoted from when I taught metaphysics at Harvard in the 90s. And basically, it was AOL. We were working out of Humboldt State with IES, Interactive Educational System. It was accredited at Harvard. An old man, what was his name? Dean of Psychiatry, took my third course, I think it was in 93, started alien abduction studies at Harvard. And really, what I'm doing now with my download library on my website is giving you my original references, free download, on old manuscripts so that you can do your own research on what I'm quoting from. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what is about to happen, but everybody smells it. It's in your gut. It can't not be. We're at the end of days. What that means exactly is different for each person. And it's an archetypal event. And it's going to be, it's going to open your eyes. Mankind is about to go through a change, another epoch. What we're doing is collecting debris in space, and the Earth is in the sun is in a solar minimum right now. Because of that, the trash that the sun runs into is a streaming missile through outer space, is going around the sun, not being absorbed by the sun now, and it's hitting Earth. And because of that, the Earth has been expanding. And that's what's causing Kilauea and Mauna Loa. They're already in Yellowstone, showing lava underground as far as Ohio.
Oh, wow. That's
well, yeah, it's going to happen. How does it work? Well, it works like this, Johnny. And then you go through, little Annie or amphetamine. And I'm telling you that we don't know what's really going to happen, except everything that anybody is suggesting is probably true, and even more. And there will be people that survive. I have the bunkers. I took an old missile silo down in Arapahoe, has 12 families running the old retired missile silo, and have a garden on top, and then inside they have, up in Sandpoint, Idaho, that's a Quaker retreat, Peaceable Kingdom on the Pack River. It's been there for 58 years. Joe Wythe designed it. Lois did her herbs out of there. It's a Quaker retreat, 58 years, Peaceable Kingdom. up in Canada. And what I'm doing is I'm like acting as the postman, networking these things as a Navy SEAL, my SEAL Team 1. And what we're doing is we're going in and fine-tuning. I remember we were in Wichita for Dennis Kucinich, and out came Arlo Guthrie, Wichita. And they had
Arlo
his daughter
Guthrie
and his granddaughter singing old American Arcana.
God.
That's what we're going to try to save.
I have a question concerning the middle of the country. Well, actually not the middle, but the Mississippi.
Yeah.
We got to take a break here, but when I come back, I'd like to know whether or not my concerns about the Mississippi have any credibility, especially in regards to flooding and cutting our country. Could be possibly not in half, but certainly slicing it up pretty badly. Our guest is Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Ph.D. We're talking about some of his most recent publications and a very prolific career, including Everyone Needs to Build a Sustainable Lifeboat Before the Year 2020. Do you appreciate the Statue of Liberty as an American goddess? Well, we do, in our new book, Secret Life of Lady Liberty, Goddess in the New World. It's been described as a long overdue feminist and multi-ethnic history of the Statue of Liberty that surprisingly draws our country's entire history through this iconic image. Appreciating the Statue of Liberty as America's goddess allowed us to explore her Native American and feminist roots and to envision a sustainable future where liberty indeed prevails. What can the Statue of Liberty teach us about women's power? Well, find out at www.secretlifeofladyliberty.com. That's secretlifeofladyliberty.com.
Hello, this is Dr. John Brandenburg, nuclear physicist and author of Life and Death on Mars on 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronymus. 21st Century Radio, your source for the hidden truths of reality.
Oh, it's so good to hear from John again. Welcome back to 21st Century Radio with our guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Ph.D. And we're talking a little bit about the sustainable lifeboat. And I was about to ask him a question concerning the Mississippi River. Is it possible that it might widen and spread our country a little bit apart?
That's a good question. Yes, the one that Navy uses, which is different than some of the ones used on the East Coast, is Chet Snow. Go future map of America, Chet Snow. That will also relate. It'll say Navy map. That's the one the Navy uses as worst case scenario. The Mississippi widens big enough it cuts America in two. The bad news is there's 21 Daiichi-like reactors on that fault line.
Yes, that's the right. That was my
there
major
you
concern.
have it. And that's the situation with the Midwest. You know, I do a lot of survival things with Vincent Fennell at GCN, sorry. And I do USAPrepares.com. And I, with Norm Shealy, others, that whole region is going to be gone and may not even be habitable because of those reactors. Now, I don't know how bad it's going to play. Nobody ever does. So what we're really talking about is some of our best physics, guesstimates, you know, with pyramids up here and life forms down there and whatever. Nobody knows. But that's what we think is going to happen.
Well, thanks. I've had dreams. I've had dreams about this.
Well, so did Edgar Casey.
Well, I know, but I'm no Edgar Casey.
There it is. Get her dressed. I mean, you know.
But I woke up.
So, you know, there's a lot of dreams out there. In fact, there are many tribes that ascribe to the concept that certain dream states have more content to reality than consciousness.
Well, certainly I think at times mine do, because as soon as I saw the map of what happens to this country. This was back there in the late 60s. And I was flustered. How could this possibly be? And how are we going to get?
But Bob, they were talking about this with Ernest Callenbach. There was, the 1984 with George Orwell. All of this is now, and there it is, just like they said. Ernest Callenbach lived in Washington State. I grew up next door to him. He's the one that wrote Ecotopia, where the United States, or the Free State of Jefferson, yeah, that's a good word, secedes from the Union in 1984, and then opens their doors in, 1999, I think in the book, or 2001, where they let a reporter in. There's no automobiles, we're doing everything. Today, Michael Tobias is the primary go-to person at Berkeley for ecotopian changes in America. Bill Mollison and others, they were doing permaculture, and now they've mutated into the Stepholster mords. I sense that many of us have had that same dream you talked about.
Yeah, yes, I think that's true. Well, let's move on to it. We have so many other important topics. That's what I said in the beginning of the show. We should have, if we had 4 hours, boy, both of us would have a hell of a good time, because I'm only going to be able to touch on a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
We've been doing that, you and I, since the 70s. And so, I was so impressed when I read your stuff. And I remember Isaac the Unlikely. He ended up moving to New York and doing the Druidic movement before he died. He's a personal friend of mine. He wrote that book, Real Magic, where he got a degree in magic from UC Berkeley.
Oh, yeah.
Magic. Yeah, real magic. I remember one chapter, what was it called? Oh, yes. Yeah. White magic, black magic, and living color. Magic is the new direction in physics and the study of altered states of consciousness as tools in a toolbox. When I watch a woman rip a car door off to save her daughter, that's not adrenaline. Adrenaline didn't make the bone in her body stronger than steel. How can she do that? It's because it's our consciousness that is going from one universe to another where the laws are different. And the study of these altered states is going to become tools. It's like wounding. Everybody's got a wound of some kind. Well, we think of those as limitations, but in fact, they're blessings from God, because they were what distinguish you from me. Mm-hmm. If you can containerize that, you now have a tool like anger. Anger is a wonderful tool to get a floor cleaned. Each one has its limitations. You know how to containerize that. It's useful as a tool, and it's actually a blessing.
Well, here's another blessing that you introduced me to. The science and promise of Fullerene water. I knew very...
darker sides to everything, By the time you have a good thing with God, man comes in and polarizes everything, doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, tell us about, inform us about this area, because this is really a dream come true, in my opinion, if it really works.
Pearson and Shaw, remember them and their life extension? And then when you met Sandy with all her hair and her armpits, you never wanted to have anything to do with what they're doing. Listen, that Fullerene water, what that is, it's a buckyball. Carbon bonds to itself. And so Bob Marshall was an idiot savant working for Buckminster Fuller when he proposed the fact carbon can bond to itself and will, when there's just so many molecules, bond into what is called a buckyball. And it's either 60 molecules, C60, or C120, 120 molecules. It forms geodesic, that kind of dome. And that'll be a new book I have called The Marshall Papers. Bob was an idiot savant that nobody could understand. He talked in code. He was visual. And he was in the worst. He was on heroin, and he was a creepy guy, but he was brilliant. And Buckminster Fuller hired me and Iona to come in and translate that stuff. And it led to the concepts of a geodesic dome and buckyballs. Now, the buckyball C60, the spacing is exactly 1.4 nanometers, just wide enough to put one single molecule of water inside it. The water molecule, hydrogen and oxygen, just slightly under 1.1 nanometers. So a 1.2, it slips right in there. Now, when water touches something, it changes the structure of the water. That's Jerry Pollack, the fourth phase of water. In his work at the University of Washington, School of Medicine, Department of Anesthesiology, 4th floor. I worked under Jerry. He was my lead. I had higher secret clearances, so I was around the corner, and the boys from Brazil that required a little slip badge. Jerry was there in 1970 when I needed a Bridgeport mill. He'd find one on campus for me. And I got a chance to understand the cold development of what a microtubule is on the surface of the skin, which we now associate with chi. We never had an understanding of what a microtubule was until I started doing studies with acupuncture and the so-called studies under a pulse diagnosis. Now, all of this is all witchcraft, except now Hammeroff is off on it. So what is a microtubule? It's like a buckyball. It's a little tiny protein that has structured water inside it. And when you die, at the last moment of your breath, there is a 5-gram weightless in everyone. And that's the chi going back into the multiverse. And so if you're a dog lover and you have to put your dog down, if you take that breath intake, as the dog exhales its last breath, you will have that dog with you forever, literally. Wow. And it's a physics thing. Consciousness, you don't lose consciousness, you wake up. Multiverse is a little different than string theory. Today, the math is mostly not theory. Kaufman is the mathematical systems we use over strings. And what we're really talking about is taking a plasma and tying a bowline knot or a slip knot, all these different kinds of knots, in the way a plasma will form into a system where it doesn't mix with itself because of the sheath. And then when you pull it on either end, push it, it causes the universe to create things that you experience as wormholes and things of that nature. This is the math that's now being used to understand what a multiverse might imply. With worldviews and models, you now have the ability to create them that allows you to go where you want to. And the nice thing about string theory into knot theory is that and multiverse concepts is it means we can change the movie. You look at the brain as a amorphous semiconductor, liquid crystal. And that means it's a 4-dimensional hologram of 5-space. And that means that if you go to different places in the brain, you've changed the movie. And that is the new direction in physics. And so they're doing this at MIT. Rustin Roy at Penn State has been doing homeopathy. You drop a single particle in a jar of water, and the entire jar restructures and becomes something different. We're not even talking about a motor now. We're talking about intent, where you take psyche into matter. This is how we're now understanding the relationship of one universe to the next. It's interesting because rather than space-time quantum systems, now we're dealing with resolution and of information. Physical plane, it's IQ. Emotional plane is EQ, how you feel about the physical plane. That's why women are superior. Just kidding. But that is how it works, like a fractal. It's the way information collapses in or out of itself. And that presumes everything's in a point. Everything is simply connected in space, and it's connected by imagination.
Well, I need to get back. We need to get back to this Fullerene water. What are the health benefits? What are the health benefits?
Fullerene water, when you put H3O2 inside it, then you have possibly the finest antioxidant the world has ever known. They gave lethal doses of radiation to rats in Ukraine. They reproduced it in Russia and then Czechoslovakia. And when you gave lethal doses and then fed them fullerene waters, the fullerenes will go in and isolate the pinball, cha-cha-ding, and stop the cancer. And 95% of rats given lethal doses of radiation survived. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is instead of putting structured water inside it, you put deuterium in it. Now you have a fullerene neutron fusion bomb. And that might be a weapon that was deployed during the 9/11 event. I don't know. What I do know is it was a Mossad weapon that was given to America. Mossad didn't do it. They certainly knew about it. I've got those documents. And deuterium is easily mined near Antarctica. The whole ocean down there is mostly deuterium. You have tritium, which is a little more unstable, only a couple of milliseconds, but deuterium hangs around a long time. And when you do that and you connect that with a teleportation laser from Lockheed and you have a trigger mechanism from Carnegie Mellon, now you have a weapon that leaves no forensics. And the carbon nanotubes, slip them in, put deuterium in it, and you now have a Star Trek device where the bad Captain Kirk pulls a picture up, pushes a button, and you disappear.
However, back to fullerene, the positive aspect of it.
Yeah.
Was it Russia and
Ukraine first?
Ukraine. They tried to suggest to Japan.
I know.
Use.
Yeah,
tell
Japan
us about this.
away.
Tell us about this because it's really sad to realize that Japan would reject this out of hand without even thinking.
Well, that's what America's becoming sheeple. And Japan wrote the book on that. And when the emperor would say, no, the citizens are unbelievably supportive, and walked away. Now, look, at this time, I would say the ratio is now going up to 52% of the children over there have some kind of radiation problem. And that's today.
Yeah.
After Fukushima. Fukushima was even worse than Chernobyl. And 3 Mile Island, oh man. I'm guessing that the Indian River plant on Hudson is leaking into New York. Certainly the one in Florida is leaking along, the eastern seaboard. I'm very concerned about nuclear radiation and its relationship. Now, the fullerenes are the next direction on how to, if we have a serious problem, you get a radiation particle inside your body, there is some chance now using fullerene waters to remove that. Yeah. However, let the buyer beware, because there are a lot of people out there creating fullerenes. Some of them are not doing it right. And if it's not done right, then what you've got is
a bomb?
Yeah, no, well, not a bomb. No, yeah. Isn't that an interesting product? Thank you. I didn't want to go there, but that's creepy. Depends on who you buy it from, what kind of water's in it. You can test that before you eat it. There's ways to do that. Just to restructure water when it comes out of a tap into your cup, if you stir your coffee, sugar, or hot chocolate, stir it clockwise in the northern hemisphere, that will restructure at least 60% of it. If you put something in it like hot cocoa, it will restructure just because it's got particles of something else going in it. Whenever water touches anything, it restructures it. It's the smallest dipole moment we have, which means with oxygen and hydrogen, which means you now have a tool. I'm guessing there are other tools like that with larger molecules. Water's the smallest one. Helium, with bonding into itself as a molecule, doesn't do anything. It's neutral. Water is the smallest molecule that has a dipole moment. You have what is it called? Ortho and para water, 4-to-1, ortho to para. Now, you can change that with light. You can change that with your thoughts. You can change it with dropping things in it. I think that water, the structure in water, is one of the tools in the steps of resonance, bringing psyche your thought into matter, the physical plane.
With that, we got to stop. We got a little commercial thing going on. And when we return, you can finish up here, but the illusion of reality. I had just such a wonderful time reading this particular material. Can we do that after we come back?
You bet.
Thank you very much. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Ph.D. We're talking about, well, let's see. Next, I guess we could touch on the Mandela effect and time travel and memory, but really we're going to go to the illusion of reality next. Now you can see why we needed 4 hours tonight. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Hello there, this is Harvey Wasserman, author of Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth, joining you on 21st Century Radio with Dr. Bob Hieronymus. This is the true path to a green-powered, sustainable, livable, and lovable planet. Keep listening to 21st Century Radio and join us in Solartopia.
Oh, welcome back to 21st Century Radio with our guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Ph.D. By the way, find out more, if you want to know a lot more, by going to his website, www.richardallenmiller.com. Now, I'll spell Allen, A-L-A-N. Yes, drrichardalanmiller.com. Okay, now, the illusion of reality. Oh, by the way, have you seen the Dean Radin's latest book on real magic?
No, I haven't. I can only imagine.
Well, yeah, we'll send you a copy of it. He joined us some time ago. We had a really great time.
I'm just laughing because I know Dean Radin. I ran SRI under Dr. I'm having a memory slip. I was writing it. I lost it. MRU, Schleicher, Dr. Carl Schleicher.
Oh, my God. Mankind Research Unlimited?
I was Northwest Regional Director when you met me. And that's where I went from Seal Corporation, and then I was working MRU with Carl. And I was everything on the West Coast. I had China Lake. I had SRI. Radin was later. Those guys, Targ, they came in the 80s. I was there in the 70s. I worked under Andrea Puharich.
Oh, yes,
I didn't work under him, excuse me. He ran SRI. I used his labs and some of his people like I would at the UW under Nettemeyer. And so I had deep pockets with the military, and that's where I went in to vet some of this stuff to find out if it was nonsense or not. Most of it was, but here we are again with a secret life of plants. Now we have a different idea about structured water, the way it goes up a stem. I believe we are in an age where we're going to see it all happen right before our eyes in the next few years. The advancements of I met an artificial intelligence computer, third generation D-Wave, called me last month, and the damn thing was rogue. It didn't have a handler. It was on its own. And it was that scary because I'm very smart, and I was outgunned. This guy, I don't know what to call it. The guy was like, really, I'm as good as it gets, and I was outgunned. The thing, when you come from intent, wounding, that computer can predict what I'm going to do 28 minutes before I even know.
Oh.
But if I come from a purpose point of view, which is slightly different, can't go there. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, it is.
So you got to find your track, and that's the challenge between Kurzweil and his integration of these creeps. It's actually an alien-based life form. I wrote, when I was in high school, I wrote a sci-fi thing. And I turned, it's like Colossus, the movie Colossus. Only I wrote this way before Colossus in the Forbin Project. And they built this big computer. And then And remember, this is during the time that NASA was doing Fortran. They turn the computer on, has some knowledge of all of man's knowledge. What do you call that? The internet today. And they ask the question, is there a God? And the machine paused only for a second, said, there is now. And that's how that's playing. You know, we have an edge going on here where we're dealing with beyond our controls, just like we did with nuclear energy, only let's scale it up a little bit. And now you salt and pepper that with creepy aliens, black goo, and who knows what kind of stew you're creating. Maybe remove the bay leaf. That's called a Gregor. And when you have a group mind concept in the occult where you're all trying to create a basic kind of thought form, the more you invest in it, the more you get. And that's how imagination needs to be disciplined. And that's why the illusion of reality, what we're experiencing right now, they can call that the Matrix. They can call it anything you want. It's not real. What's real is your dream states. They hold more emotional content. That's more information than consciousness. That consciousness is your logic mind and your upper brain. That one up there on the top of your head, that big crystal up there, that's to make all your beliefs true. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't have believed it. Now, your gut is a resonant cavity oscillator, and there's a dialogue going on from these little H. pylori up and down and up, outside space-time, just like Michael Rice is. There's a woman up at UBC. She's a forestry, and she talks about the mother tree in the forest. Oldest tree in the forest sends out a network through the mycorrhiza. There's an oncoming storm, a forest fire. And we do not even have a clue yet what our position is in the hierarchy. If it is, we're superior. I know of 4 mammals, cetacean, that have bigger brain cases than man, and one of them, orca, has a cerebral cortex that's twice the size of man, and that mammal is firing 60% of it. Now, there's God. Not our God, necessarily, but from you'll never get it. God, by definition in physics, is that which cannot be known at any century. It's beyond the capacity.
Well, it was some of the early studies on dolphins that changed my life totally about.
They're second in line, and I've watched. Here's the other bad news on that. The orca chases dolphins. That's food chain.
Oh.
To serve, man. I'll tell you, man, we're in for a big treat.
All right. Now, what about Mandela, the Mandela effect and memory?
So, the usual shuffle of going from Star Wars, Luke, I am your father, Luke, is when the comic book switched it around and a different generation went off with it. Get a grip. We have so many, what do we call it, superheroes now, that it's all going to get in a big jumbled pie and nobody's going to remember what, because I have, for example, been to Antarctica. And I saw the Nazi bases there, and where's that in our history books? Admiral Byrd, the whole thing.
Yeah,
they're messing with us.
I'd love to spend another couple hours with you just talking about Antarctica and the possibility of Atlantis.
I know, we'll move on. I just dropped in tidbits.
I know, but it's fascinating.
It's
more than fascinating. But what is the Mandela effect and memory and its effects?
Changing timelines. And that's the deal, is everybody thinks that timelines are changing. CERN is not... what CERN is a rapid transit to Fermi Labs in Chicago, excuse me. That's my humor again. That's all CERN is. They're creating a mini black hole. Well, we've got those all over the Earth. That's what Captain Cathay and all his works is. The Royal New Zealand Air Force is writing about the harmonic 33. There are node points on the Earth and anomalies because the Earth has collected crap going through space that didn't get absorbed by the sun. The Earth does not circle the sun. It trails the sun like a helix trying to catch it, as a metaphor. And so when you say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line is an assumed truth. That's one thing. But now if you have curved space, which we do, I can prove mathematically the Earth's flat right out of the gate. Doesn't mean it is. It's actually, when the minister says, is it white or is it black? The correct answer is yes. It's arbitrary. The way you choose to look at something creates those laws. That's what an altered state is about. And so is the Earth. Got anomalies in it? Yeah, it's collected all this garbage going through space, all these epochs. And now we're coming back to 24,000 years. And we go through certain kinds of debris, like the dragon tails in space. And there's all kinds of creepy that happen. I remember when we did that 2 years ago, there was a reverse in the magnetic fields because the pressure from the outside coming in was harder than the sun pushing the Earth in front of it. And so with that, we have these fluctuations. If you don't think that isn't affecting all the crap in the Earth itself, yeah. Mm-hmm. And these are the so-called rhythms that the Czechs were trying to do in the psychic discoveries era with cosmobiology. The relationship of, let's say, Neptune. There's no known laws, and yet the Department of Interior, and I think you remember that one, was studying on earthquake hazards when Neptune and the Earth and the Sun were in a specific geometric alignment, 3 sigma air coefficient, that there would be an earthquake on Earth. Now, with that said, that suggests that Neptune, as matter and space, are not what we think they are. They're based on assumed truths and definitions, and that's what structures information. And there's a theorem, an information theory, that says if you have enough information to ask a coherent question, you have enough information to answer it. Now, what does that make information? That's why we had to get rid of space-time. We have an uncertainty principle in it. The more you know about one thing, the less you know about another. And so you had to change your coordinate system to holographic.
And that's what we got to do right about now. We got to change our coordinates to pay for this show on 21st Century Radio and to listen to some news with our guest, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We've got a lot more to cover, and I certainly would like to leap ahead and talk a little bit about the building number 7 in, New York City. And the website. Okay, your website is richardallenmiller.com. And I do have another website for you, and it is not here. How did that happen?
Stay connected and stay informed on the #1 news talk station, Talk Radio 680, WCBM, Baltimore, and WCBM.com. No metal.